Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 4D Method 4D user group. Today is January 22nd, 2025. This is our first meeting of the new year. So, welcome, everyone, and I hope you had a great New Year celebration. This is meeting number 76, fighting number 76. On the agenda today, I'm going to again mention a little bit about the 4D Method 4D user group, talk a little bit about what's coming up on the user group schedule for presentations. I'll kick it over to Kirk Brooks to say a few things about the 4D happy hour that happens each week. Then we'll get some 4D news. I've heard that there is some since we had our last meeting from
Et je ne sais
Jim
pas comment, mais bon,
Sobchak. Um, and then we'll cover some of the recent highlights in the 4D blog and also on the 4D knowledge base. And then we will hurry on along to why we're all here, I'm sure. The special topic presenter, Enable Data Change Tracking from Keisuke Miyako, which is going to be awesome. So my name is Brent Raymond. I organize the 4D Method 4D user group. I'm a 4D developer myself, work at the Art Institute of Chicago Museum. I've been doing 4D for several decades now, and it is my tool of choice, and I like to hear about what other people are doing with 4D out in the world and to share a little bit about what's going on in the world of 4D. Our website is 4dmethod.com, where you can see all kinds of information about our past presenters and future schedule. And I can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. The 4D Method user group started this back in the day just to bring together our scattered community of developers and 4D users and users of just 4D applications that we've made. I like to share new programming techniques and just really see where 4D is deployed in the world, what it's doing. Sometimes it's very surprising. It's right around the corner and you didn't even know it, and it's helping to run the world. So it's also a great place to find 4D development support. A lot of great developers come here in each of the meetings, and also to see what can be done with 4D. It's not always, not all of our applications are doing everything that can be done with 4D. There are some great ideas out there, and a lot of them are shared here and in the 4D community. So, right, thanks for joining. All of these are open Zoom meetings to include everyone, and they're done live with all of the bumps and bruises that come along with that. So hopefully none of those happening today. Right. So I encourage all of you to be a presenter here in one of these meetings. Show off your application or just some things that you've been working on, something special and interesting that I'm sure we'd all like to see. It's an easy crowd for the most part. Except for some questions from Tim every now and again. It's you'll make it through. On March 12th, we have Ricardo Mello coming to bring 4D and AI together, bring the power of large language models, LLMs, to your 4D applications. Then on April 30th, we have Jim Carver joining us to talk about beautiful documentation made easy. That's going to be very interesting, especially as I know that most of us can use some help with our documentation. And then on June 18th, we have a very full year already, and it's apt to get even more full as we get more things on the schedule here. We have Bruno Raymakers coming back to present on a topic he calls list as objects. So That should be very interesting. And you can see all of the upcoming topics now and forevermore at 4dmethod.com/schedule.
Brent, just
Hmm.
remember that we changed the date.
Oh,
So for the
sorry,
previous
I
slide,
didn't update the slides. Yeah, thank you for that, Ricardo. That's
yeah,
correct. We moved it up a week. So the date is actually going to be for Ricardo,
easy.
March 5th, right?
Yes, perfect. Sounds
That's
good.
right. That's right. We all need vacations, and so does Ricardo. So yeah, sorry about that. I believe the date is correct on the website, just not in what I'm sharing. So
Looks good.
anyways, yep. And what about you? We do have open dates. Last one that's listed on the calendar currently is August 6th. We'll put some more out there on the calendar, but um, we can also add other dates in between here and there, or if you prefer not to do it live, really, I think that it's a great opportunity to just record your own short demo. It can be as short as a couple minutes or even longer to share something you're working on, something component that you like to make available for the community, plugins, cool stuff, your hobbies, anything. We're it's this is the place to try and show off some of your great work. Again, check it out the schedule at 40method.com/schedule. It is apparently more right than these slides. So now kicking it over to Kirk to talk about the 4D happy hour, where 4D is on tap every Friday of each week to talk about what's going on. I'll let him describe a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Brent, and hello to everyone. Just to reintroduce 4D Happy Hour, we are a weekly 4D user hangout, I suppose, because, of course, drinking a beer is not a requirement, although a lot of folks do. It's been happening every Friday afternoon for the last 4.5 years. And recently I changed the meeting time, moving it up an hour to 2:30 p.m. on Fridays Pacific time. This really seems to be a big hit because, frankly, the attendance has just been consistently twice what we were seeing before. So it feels like that's been a good change. Actually, another change that I'm rolling out or introducing for the format is to invite you to shoot me a message if you have something that you'd like to present or a question to ask, or just basically that you want to you want a little time there. Frankly, when it was a smaller group, it wasn't really these things weren't really an issue. But what I'm kind of hearing from folks is that because there are more people there now, and some of us are good at holding the stage, or if not good at it, at least we do it anyway. So this is a way for me to just kind of steer the conversation and make sure that everybody who comes with something that you really want to present has an opportunity to put it out there, and we make a little space. I'll be adding a link to the website to let you do that. In the meantime, I think probably everybody here participates on the discuss forum. So just shoot me a message there, and this could be as soon as 30 minutes or 15 minutes before we start. 4D happy hour is notoriously casual, and this isn't really going to change this. But I would just see to it that if you that you get some space. And in terms of things that we've been covering, clearly the acquisition has been a big topic, and the change in the licensing structure. A lot of discussion about how to adopt to those changes. A lot of ideas coming up about the way people are doing that. 4D Happy Hour, just sort of by default has turned into, I think, pretty much the only place that you could, short of meeting up with somebody at a bar, just pop in and just talk about the business of being a 4D developer, 4D programmer, 4D consumer, and those things are always welcome. Although I will hasten to add that we are still primarily a nerdy code sharing forum. And the best things, I think we're really at our best when somebody's just sharing some code, sharing a screen, talking through some problem, presenting some problem, making a presentation of something very cool that they've done. Really glad to see that Jim Curver is a frequent visitor there, is going to be showing off some of his work. There's always a lot of good stuff to be seen, and at the same time, there is no question naive or too dumb to ask, because programming is hard and programming is complex, and we put a lot of time into it, and frequently just having another set of eyes look at something and go, but what about line 17? And it clicks into place. So that's what we do. Everybody is invited. I encourage you to come. I'll throw the website into chat here. And once more, that's every Friday, 2:30 Pacific time. And I hope to see you there. Thank you, Brent. I really appreciate you giving me the time for this.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk. Thanks for hosting that each week. Looks like I got one more slide to correct there, but hey, I'll get that sorted out for next time. And now over to Jim Sobczak to talk a little bit about some of the recent news with 4D. A few things have happened since the new year and a lot of discussion out there. So, hi, Jim.
Hey, Brent, thank you. First, bear with me. I had some dental work done yesterday, and I'm big on numbing agent. So I had a lot of that, and I didn't realize that every time the dentist said bite down, I was biting down on my tongue. So I have a big tongue today. It feels like a ball of cotton in my mouth. So if I'm slurring my words a little bit, bear with me.
It's not happy hour yet, Jim.
Not happy hour, but I'm glad to hear that we're starting at 2:30 now. That's awesome, Kirk. That's like brunch, right? Okay, so greetings from Northern California. Happy New Year to you all. Thank you, Brent, for inviting Will, Ricardo, and me to participate in this meeting. We have a whole slew of 4D people here today, including Keisuke. It's always a great opportunity for us to touch base with the 4D community at these meetings. So like you, we're really looking forward to Keisuke's presentation on enabling data change tracking. Keisuke has accomplished so much at 4D, and he brings such enthusiasm and energy to the entire 4D community, including us here at in the San Jose office. And we rely on him a lot for his knowledge of 4D and software in general. I think some of the most memorable summit sessions I've attended have been presented by Keisuke. So we're really happy that he's presenting today, and really proud of the work he's done at 4D. So thanks, Keisuke. Okay, the big news, of course, was the announcement of the release of Codely on Monday. Hopefully you all heard about that. It's a really exciting time for us here at 4D. Hopefully you'll run over to Codely.com and catch some of the buzz over there. I can't say it any better than what Samir Salibi, who is the marketing director for Codely, posted on the Codely blog yesterday when it was released. So I'm just going to read what he says, just a couple sentences, but he really captured the flavor of Codely. He said, following years of dedicated development, extensive market research, and the establishment of a comprehensive platform designed to facilitate the efficient and swift creation of applications, we are now prepared to accept your projects. To me, it's just beautiful the way he said it, and feel that the doors are open. We can take your projects now. So, and he also thanked, and we do too, the beta testers, the Codely beta testers, for their active participation in the Codely beta program. Without you, we couldn't have done it. So congratulations to the entire Codely team, which is somewhat separate from the 4D team, but some of the same 4D developers. But I hope you all get a chance to go over there and take a look at it. We already have subscribers, which is great news. A couple from the US, actually. So that's good to know that that people are interested and they're subscribing already. Okay, and for those of you who are curious about the roadmap for 4D technology post-acquisition by Volaris, I highly encourage you to jump over to the 4D forums and read the latest post by Laurent Rebardier, the founder and CTO of 4D. I think you'll be excited to hear about the new things that are coming down the pipe, including the integration of Quick Network Layer, the continuing expansion of Orda, of course, and you'll hear more about AI, which will play a key role in the 4D ecosystem going forward, and about which Ricardo will be presenting in March 6th. So please go over there and read the post by Laurent Rebardier. And also, before I address this slide that is right in front of you there, I wanted to make sure that you're all aware that we're having the 4D Worldwide Developer Conference in Paris on October 28th and 29th. So this is different than our summits that we typically have. We're bringing the entire global community together in one place so that developers can, from all over the world, connect, learn, and share their experience with 4D. And it should be beautiful in Paris in October. So hopefully you'll all make it over there. And I know we're looking forward to it, to just getting everyone together in the same place. So yeah, that should be great. And okay, and right, so I'm looking at this slide here. 4D was acquired by Volaris, which is a group in Toronto. I'm sure that most of you have read the press release about the acquisition. They're in the business of acquiring software companies. And in the case of Volaris, which is a group within Constellation, they acquire vertical market companies. They call them solution vendors, or we call them OEMs, but they're selling software into vertical markets. The interesting part of the acquisition is that Volaris has never lost any of the acquisitions that they've made. They've never turned them over. They never sold them. And that's literally hundreds of acquisitions, right? Every once in a while, they will combine a couple of the smaller companies. But the original acquisition that was made in 1996 is still part of the group. So I think that's really impressive from my point of view. And I think that's what one of the main reasons that we were even considering Volaris as being acquired by that group. It has been some changes to our licensing and cost. The costs have gone up for maintenance and new product. We're calling that not a price increase so much as an adjustment. Of course, when we were acquired, they did due diligence on our company and went way back into all of our books and everything, and found that basically our annual revenue increase for the last 20 years is something less than 1.8%. So clearly we haven't been keeping up with even inflation. So this one-time adjustment that will happen is happening this year, basically, was required. And I think it'll put us in a better place with more of what our competition is charging. And you won't see this type of adjustment going forward. It'll be more of the type of price increases that you've been seeing in the past. So thank you all for bearing with us on that. I know that's been a concern of a lot of you. Also of concern has been the stoppage of selling 4D Developer Edition Pro maintenance. Basically, those customers are now, if you have Developer Edition Pro, you're now going to be getting that license through the partner program. So it's just an expansion to the partner program. It's a subscription, really easy to do, and we can sign you up for that easily. Just contact your account manager. And what else? About standalone pricing. Yeah, that seemed to be a big topic on the forums, and we've been getting a ton of phone calls about that and emails because the unlimited desktop that a lot of you were using, and really there was no way for us to know how many people were using that because it's just basically a free part of the developer edition or was. So a lot of people are using it, and I know Ricardo and I and Will in particular and Tracy Roberts are working with those customers to find out how we can devise a contract to make it work for you. And we have several options for doing that. Of course, you know about the 4D standalone product that's available in the store. So that's available by subscription. If you have a large quantity of unlimited desktop deployments or standalone deployments, we're happy to work with you in developing contracts to do that. And we have all kinds of contracts that we can get together, volume license agreements or whatever. So we're trying to work with those customers who are wanting to keep with their standalone deployments. And many customers have both server and standalone. So yeah, so we're working on that. I think that's it for me, Brent. I'm sure there might be questions or comments or something, but that's all I really had prepared to speak about. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
I have a question.
Mhm.
I always have questions. I have a question.
yeah. Hi, Tim.
Hi. So just to clarify, as of right now, you cannot buy 4D Developer Pro and own it. You can only rent it a year at a time.
That's correct.
Okay. Just
But
want to
of
make
course,
sure.
all the Developer Edition Pro licenses you have are perpetual,
Right.
and those will continue to run forever.
Yeah.
You just won't be able to extend maintenance on them. So yeah, if you need Developer Edition Pro, you just basically subscribe to the partner program.
Will 4D Team Developer continue to be grandfather supported? In other words, if you got some team developer that's on maintenance, that can keep going forward, right?
Any licenses you have now will last forever.
But if you're
You can't add maintenance to that. No, you cannot add maintenance to that.
But if you had team developer on maintenance now.
Yeah, and it's good until your maintenance expires.
Yeah, so you keep doing maintenance and team developer continues to work.
Until the end of the year, right? Because you can't.
Next year.
Well, because you couldn't, as of the end of this year, we stopped providing maintenance on the developer editions, right? So if your maintenance runs through December of 2025, that will be the last time you'll be able to get maintenance on those licenses.
But will team developer continue to work though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any perpetual license you have will continue to work. Does that make sense?
Well, perpetual and subscript. I just want to make sure that if you've got projects that are in 4D team developer right now, and they're bought through the partner program, and you're paying your yearly maintenance on the partner program or subscription, that's not going to stop. That's going to keep going. Because I know you don't sell team developers, but the existing ones ought to continue to work as long as we keep paying our yearly partner fee, maintenance, etc.
Well, actually, Developer Edition Pro purchased outside of the partner program has nothing to do with the partner program.
That's right. I'm talking about team developer, the 40 server team developer.
So are you getting team developer through the partner program or separately?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not, but a project I'm working on does.
Okay. If that person has team developer edition through the partner program, they just renew their partner program, they'll continue to get it. So
great. That's all. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jim. Yeah, that's a lot of discussion out there and a lot of clarification that I know that 4D's been working hard to provide answers for everyone's questions, and clearly they're available offline to help people through their particular situation, and I always appreciate Jim's role in providing that service, and everyone else on the 4D forums.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Brent. If I could say one more thing. So I think there's some concern that the basic nature of 4D, the branding of 4D, our technology will be changing since we've been acquired by a big company. And that's not the case. They pretty much acquired us for our technology, for the way we run our business, and that's what they love about us. So there'll be no reason to change that, essentially. So we will still be 4D. No one's leaving 4D. No one on this phone call from 4D is planning to leave 4D. Laurent Rebardier said in his post that he's not retiring. He loves working in 4D. He loves working in the product. So he's going to be staying. So it's basically just business as usual for us. There's just changes, of course, to HR and some type of reporting we have to do because we're now a part of a public company, right? A publicly traded company. And that's always a little bit different than when you're private. But those are the changes we're dealing with now. But essentially, we're still the same company and we still have the same staff. So, and we still have the customers. So we love you guys and we're glad you're still around. So that's it for me.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Thanks, Jim. I know it's a big topic, too much to discuss here. I had these slides reversed, but yeah, that's big news that Codely is now officially launched. I think that in the email that they mentioned that beta testers get 20% off for the first 3 months of any subscription you start before March 30th. And yeah, there's all kinds of uh, services that come along with that, the backup services and creation of multiple deployment environments, URL customization, public page exposure, custom login page, and much more. So yeah, if that fits your business model, go check out codely.com. And certainly I know that as 4D developers, we've all been pressured to provide web interfaces here and there. There's a lot of different ways to do that, and Codely is one of the newest, best options for making that happen. Yeah, so moving along with the 4D release news, uh, 4D 20R7 was recently officially also released. That has the outgoing message class. That's a more sophisticated way to handling HTTP client GET calls. Um, Also, a feature they're calling direct typing, which is basically all about moving away from compiler methods. Just warning that if you do activate the direct typing, then all of your methods will need to be using the declare statement and for the new way to declare your parameters for methods. And I think also the var declaration as well. R7 also has session singletons, new process management tools, just more information about when processes were launched, and just more insight into the processes themselves. There's features for more robust security, which in this case means enhanced certificate validation specifically for engined apps. So it's all tied in with TLS and certificate validation with external authorities, validation authorities. And yeah, so that's great. Security obviously is important in this day and age. We all need to protect against things like man-in-the-middle attacks and some other attacks as well. Many attacks in the list. But this version also has a really nice feature called set window document icon. That's super nice for anyone who wants to make an interface where you want to kick out directly to a certain file on disk. And the expectation is that, say, if you option click on the header, that it will lead you to the folder, the document that's related to the information that you're seeing in a particular 4D form. So, yep, all that and more is in 4D 20R7. You can see articles in the 4D blog about each of those features and a lot more that I tend to not have time to dig into in these user group meetings. But each R version is always packed with all kinds of goodness. Speaking of the 4D blog, there's been some recent articles. Normally they're about kind of the next R version that's coming through the pipe. And in this case, R8 will have some new features for working with 4D forms. A couple of them. One article is empower your development process with your forms. This is big. I like this one a lot. In my development, I tend to use classes, user classes, all the classes these days, and I've found user classes to be extremely useful for working with a dialogue, working with any kind of form that you're showing the user. You can basically pack all of the functionality that dialogue uses and needs into a class. Even launching the dialogue, you can have it all tied in directly into that class. And now in the next R version, there will be a way to declare a specific class that's to be used with a form, and it will even instantiate that class for you. You can make properties of the class, which is kind of like declaring variables that you would use in that form. And in the next article here, improved form edit command. Well, I guess that's not quite tied into that what I'm talking about, but the form editor in 4D has more features now for warning you if those declared properties are being used in the wrong way, say using a text with a numerical input field, that kind of thing. So it's helping us all to catch errors earlier in the development process, and errors which can sometimes be buried in these 4D forms. Right, and then moving on to the next article, improved form edit command. This is just nice for, if nothing else, for introspection. You can use the open form. Let's see, what is the method? I can't remember what the command is, but for popping open a 4D form in edit mode, you can now also not just open the form, but you can go directly to a particular input object or form object that you want to work on, that there's an error related to, any reason why you would want to kick directly to a particular form object. Well, now you have the ability. Well, it's form edit. That's the command. It's right in front of me. So, yeah, so then commands, renaming, and deprecations. In each of these versions, there's always changes in the language that does a good job of reviewing what's changed recently and what's coming up with R8. Another article on enhanced session management for development and testing. With we all, if you're serving web pages out of 4D. Hello. There's always the session variable, which handles everything in your web session. Well, in recent versions, they've made the session variable also available in client server setups. But with this upcoming R8, session is also now available in standalone 4D instances, which basically just helps helps clarify, removes helps to simplify coding when you don't have to say, well, is session available or not? Session is kind of like a special kind of storage variable, shared space for accessing and storing information about the current session. Anyways, and then the last one is deploy standalone applications without embedded licenses, which is important for anybody who used to deploy applications with an embedded license. Well, all standalone applications now the users will need to go through the license activation window to be able to use those applications. So yeah, all right. Always a lot to review in the blog, and I don't even talk about all of them, but I definitely encourage you all to check out those articles and see what else is going on. And now I'm going to hand it over to Will Taylor to talk a little bit about some of the recent tech note that came out in the knowledge base.
Yeah, hey everybody. Nice to see you. Happy New Year to y'all, and yeah, and look forward to Keisuke's presentation as well. I do know that a large installer of 4D is using a similar method, so I'm interested to see some caveats that Keisuke has come up with as well with his ability to come up with some creative methods. So yeah, so normally you have ads. Sorry, you got me today. And I'm here to kind of present the goings on of knowledge base and what's been going on. There are two tech notes that have been added recently. One from Thomas Mall, always a great read. And that shows you how to have a reactive form when you resize your window with some classes and things like that. And it really gives you a good skeleton of making your ribbon bar, your toolbar reactive. So that's a really cool thing. A little bit too technical to get into here. And then the one I have here is a great that I'll specifically talk about is a really cool tech note from Brianna Renfro. And then she reviews kind of the more recent up-to-date notarization tools for Mac OS. These have been, I guess, for the past 2 years, the preferred method of notarization. So you don't get that dreaded app won't open, or sometimes even worse, you have to go into the settings and allow things and it gets it. So may as well notarize your app, and with Notary Tool you can do it easier.
I'll try.
We'll mute.
Yeah,
No
working on
worries.
it.
Yeah, never good. And notarization, yeah, is required for all apps that are downloaded via HTTP. If you share them over a WAN or a LAN from a network attached storage device, for example, you don't always need to notarize, but when you definitely download them from somewhere, they need to be notarized. So, and this is why is it important? Operating systems are becoming more and more secure, and Apple specifically is leading that charge and requiring for all of these notarization changes. And if you don't keep up with it, you can be left in the dust. But never fear. The Notary tool makes good work and expounds upon the clunky tools like Code. I believe CodeSign was the previous tool, and it makes it a lot easier to sign your code. So if you deliver apps to modern operating systems, modern Mac systems, this note's for you. It's really a hands-on tool, step-by-step guide on what you need as a 4D developer to sign your full application, to bring in, and also to sign and bring in, let's say, other documents and other folders that you need to for your package to be signed, what stapling is, what the notarization, what the signing is. So, and all you need is like a recent build of 4D, so plus version 18, modern Mac OS, and your Apple ID to get started on this. And there was an updated blog, I believe is as of today. There's actually a new way. So hot off the presses that I was able to look at before this. And there continue to be changes within 4D that allow you to be able to manage your notarization process in a much more simple way. And the changes are specifically with the components folder. So if you use components and you assign them, this should also pique your interest. The way that the components folder is being handled within 4D is changing, starting with 20R8, right? So let's say next version, so the version that's coming out in April. That version is going to be more in line with Mac OS's requirements for notarization. So if you're having some issues with notarization of your components folder in Mac OS, you may want to give 20R8 a try to see if that helps you with the latest build 4D. Using that build 4D component, it has all of the changes in there that should allow you to streamline to seamlessly work with the notary tool. So that's hot off the presses. So you heard it here first.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's have to check out that latest article on the changes with components in R8 and notarization. It's always a challenge to get application with so many moving parts notarized and signed and have it stay that way.
Yeah. And also, I used this. It's a really good tool to use. Just read this, start to understand it, and then compare it to the Apple developer manual. So you can even use that as a back and forth. I did that a lot when I was like reviewing. So it's a great foray into that whole world. So if you use it from there. So,
Okay. Thanks, Will.
of course.
All right. Okay, and now I have the privilege and the honor today to introduce our presenter, Keisuke Miyako, who is joining us in the middle of the night, or at least in the very, very early morning from Tokyo, Japan. Thank you so much for being available with the crazy time zone change. He lived in the UK between 1981 to 1986 and was first exposed to coding in around 1985 when a BBC Micro, I had to Google this, the BBC Microcomputer System, or a Beeb, actually, there's some neat videos out there about that machine, came to be used in the classroom for learning coding. He's been working with 4D since 2005. And personally, he's given some of my favorite demos at the 4D summits and online trainings, and they're showing all kinds of ways to extend the capabilities of 4D applications. I can't state that as much. I can't understate it. It's a veritable force. His skills with coding. His GitHub repository has over 600 projects. I think it's closer to 700 projects in several different programming languages, but he believes 4D is by far the best tool ever. So please welcome Keisuke Miyako, who is here to talk about native data change tracking in 4D.
Thank you, Brent. Yes, my presentation, the focus topic is going to be this feature, data change tracking, which was introduced in 4D with version 20R3. So it's a relative new feature. And before I move on, so I've put all my presentation script on GitHub. It's public, so I'm going to just share that link with all of you through the chat. So there you are. So if you want to just follow along with the presentation and perhaps even perform the demo yourself locally just to make sure that it works, then you can do that. Oh, Zoom thinks I'm speaking in Spanish. Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. That's odd.
Okay, whatever. Right. So a bit, first of all, throughout this presentation, so I'd like to briefly go through all the different replication features that are available in 4D and do some comparisons. And then there's a demo, there's a live demo. You can download the, I'm just going to increase the screen size, the structure file. Yes, it is a structure file, binary mode, from the releases page of the GitHub repository. So you can download the database from here and the sample data from over here.
Are you sharing your screen?
I perhaps I'm not. Okay,
There we go. Okay.
there we go.
Yep,
Right,
thank
so
you.
here I'm just going to close this window to clear up this desktop. So here we are. Yeah, so this page anybody can access. It's a repository on GitHub under my name. And if you go down to releases, there are two releases. Phase 2 is after the conversion, no, right before the conversion to project mode, and phase 1 is the raw, the original binary mode database and the data file. So I've already downloaded the files to my computer over here. So that's the database and that's the data file. Now, before I go forward, so just like to go through quickly the different features that do something similar to DCT or data change tracking. So you might recall in version 12, so that's a long time ago, 4D introduced a proprietary SQL command that's replicate and also synchronize, that helps your 4D server. So it's got to be a 4D server database serve some difference, the delta between one database and another that has the similar or perhaps identical tables. So it's a table by table feature. If you right click on a table in the structure editor, there is a checkbox if the table has a primary key that allows you to replicate data across the network. And when you enable replication on a table, then 4D automatically creates two files, 4D sync header and sync data. You might have seen these file extensions in the backup page of your 4D database settings, but these two files are used to facilitate the SQL replication feature. The replication is based on the stamp concept, which is somewhat similar to what is done internally with the DCT feature as well. It being SQL, you cannot replicate object fields, so that's a downer. That's a downside. And also it's SQL, so it's not order, it's not the cutting edge technology as of today.
Sans
Now,
manger, toi? Tu veux manger?
okay. Now,
Tu veux
around
manger
about the same
croquette?
time, there was
Oh,
another feature, the 4D sync URL. So you might have not heard of it. It
On va
was
manger
originally
croquette?
introduced.
oops. Sorry, that was me. You can mute now.
Okay, I'll try and
Sorry
mute.
about that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, no problems. So yeah, so there used to be a small 4D, no, an iOS app called iSort, and this special URL was basically used for this, used by this app to synchronize your data using HTTP as opposed to SQL. Now, this feature is still mentioned in the documentation, even in developer4d.com, but it's marked as deprecated, so I'm not going to care about this one anymore. And of course, then there's mirroring. Now, this is a current feature. The DCT feature does not replace mirroring at all. The main difference between mirroring and replication is that with replication, you basically figure out the delta between your local database and the remote database against which you want to perform a synchronization. And after a successful synchronization, you end up with identical data set, but with mirroring, because you are using journal files, you actually reproduce the entire change history, what was changed over time that resulted in the final product, Whereas with a replication, you just get the latest data from your counterpart database. So that's the difference between mirroring and replication. So in some instances, you might want to use mirroring because you're interested in the whole sequence of events, or maybe replication or synchronization. Now, synchronization is just replication performed bidirectionally, might suffice for your needs. So that's the difference. So here's a quick comparison chart. So replication, synchronization, that these are SQL commands. They were introduced in version 12 and are still available, but you can't replicate object fields. And journaling, that's basically an extension of the backup feature. So everything you can do in 4D, because it's recorded in the journal file, you can replicate using a mirroring. So that's good. But today we really want to focus on the data change tracking feature, which is available, not in LTS, unfortunately, but from R3. Now, that said, because you're using order, which is a REST API, the client, the local database, actually can be as low as 4D18, because as long as you can call the open data store command and connect to your remote database, then you can replicate your data, at least from the remote database to your local databases. So you can't synchronize if you're using the 18 or 19 or 20. You need R3 for bidirectional synchronization, but for just downloading your differences, you can actually use LTS. Okay, so now that's all the lecture. You can follow up on the different parts that make this possible, starting from order. These are links to the blog articles that first introduced those features. I also added a column because this is often a question raised by developers, is that can you use it in a binary mode? When it comes to which one? There it is, data change tracking. Actually, you don't have to be in project mode. You can use this in binary database as well. You just need to be in project mode for the sake of force login, which I will explain in the demo. Okay, so I'm just going to reduce the size of this window and show you our starting database here. So here in our sample database, this is actually from a JPR webinar. So you might have seen this exact same database in a different webinar. It's got 4 tables related to each other and some sample records. So in the clients table, we've got some client information, which has some invoices and invoice lines, which shows, which records how many of which product was sold at what discount rate. So it's a sample database. And there's also a product, I think, table here with all the different pens, which are evidently very expensive for whatever reason. Anywho, so that's the database we're going to work with. So we're starting at phase 1. So open structure file, I've done that. We've checked the records. Now let's go to the structure editor. So in the structure editor, if I right click on a table, because I'm using R7, I believe, I have this new option, which is enable data change tracking. Had I, now just for comparison, used LTS version instead, I think this is an LTS, and done the same thing, there is no option to enable DCT. So you can see that the feature is exclusive to an R version. So I'm going to select all 4 tables and then enable data change tracking. So 4D wants to confirm, are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am sure. And as a result, you'll see that each of the selected tables has got a new field. It's a 64-bit integer field called global stamp. And also a table named deleted records, I think. Just going to optimize the size. Yes, deleted records. So these internal fields added to the 4 tables together with the deleted records table is what is used to facilitate data change tracking. Okay, so that's it. Very easy. Now I want to export this database to project mode. So I'm going to do that. I didn't need to close actually. So there you are, export to project. Now I'm going to show you the log. So you can see that I've got a few errors telling me that the reject new value is recommended in place of the old map null values to blank values. It is an error. It's reported as an error, but actually the conversion to project is successful. So that's kind of confusing. So I'm just going to move all the project files to a separate folder so that I can open or use my databases, one in structure, binary mode, and the other in project mode simultaneously. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call it, what shall I call it? Invoices. Project mode. Okay. I should probably close the structure so that I can safely copy the data files to my other folder. There you go. And then also now this folder is actually empty. So is this one. I'm going to keep the structure in place, the logs there as well. The project folder, I'm going to move over here and I'm going to replicate the resources folder and perhaps settings folder as well. Okay, so I'm going to open, now before I open the converted project, I'm going to remove the binary mode suffix from the project file and also from the catalog, because the database name has been inherited from the name of the structure package. I'm going to remove these. Just Copilot. Yeah, Xcode is now using AI. Anyways, I'm going to replace the suffix. There you go. Just make it simple. Invoices. And also, I think there's a suffix in the settings as well. See, the publication name, that's also inherited from the original structure file name. So I can remove that as well. So now I can safely open my project with a second copy of 4D. I think my data is over here. While I open my original structure file as well. So now it's getting confusing. I'm opening basically a clone of the same database. Okay, so now I want to show you this new database setting. So it's exclusive to project mode. Go to that one, web. Yeah, right. So now activate REST authentication through ds.authentify. That is the new, more recommended way of managing your access rights. Previously, the old way was to use a database method called on REST authentication, and maybe use a group and the user and group feature that you're familiar with in regular 4D coding. Now, when I activate this DS Authentify, so I'm going to click that button, 4D tells me that this is irreversible. You agree to no longer use the on-REST authentication database method, and then from now on, manage all your access rights through the roles.json file. So agree to that and then close. Now, as a result, 4D has automatically created a file named roles.json. So that's the file here, which is a JSON file, as you can imagine. And you can define really granular access rights to your database through REST. Because we're exposing your database, our database over REST or HTTP, really, you really want to be sure about who gets to do what, as opposed to a regular client-server application, where you can really trust the client. Now, I just want to show you what happens if I have an error in the roles file. So I'm going to just introduce a comma over here to break the JSON format. Now, if I restart my project, you will see that in the logs folder, there is a file named roleserror.json. So every time you start a project with this roles.json feature enabled, for the attempts to scan the roles.json file in order to understand your settings, and in case there's some anomalies there, this file roles.error is created. And this is important because when there is an error, it means that there are no security no measures to guard against unauthorized access through REST, so your database is exposed, as it were. So that's the problem. So you really want to check for the existence of this file, because if I remove the comma, so now there are no errors, and I restart the project, you will see that the file disappears. Now I'm going to create, first of all, I'm going to expose my database through REST, so that one, and then create my on-server startup method. Just increase the font size a little bit. I've got the code over here, so I'm just going to paste. So here, so now you can see that on startup, I want to check if the roles file is properly incorporated in the application. And if it is not, then we have a problem. And we start the web server on port 80 because this is a demo. I don't care about HTTPS. So because this is an on-server startup, I should probably restart and then run this method. So now the database is published through 4D web server. Okay. So that's the server startup method. Now I want to open my project using server. So my project is over here. There. I'm going to open this one using 4D server. And then I'm going to connect to the server locally. And because this is a local client, I have access to design mode. I can edit the methods if I like. Now, what do I do? I want to create, or rather connect to this server application. So currently I have myself connected as a client, but what I want to do is from my second copy of 4D, so not that one, this one. So remember, we're in binary mode and it's running on 4D. Now I'm going to create a new method. Perhaps I'll name it test. And then I want to connect from this 4D application to this 4D server application using Open Data Store. Okay. Why am I doing this? Because the focus, the main topic of this presentation is indeed data change tracking, but data change tracking actually works through the REST API or the remote data store feature. So in order to get to that point, we need to first make sure that we can connect to our target database through Open Data Store. So Open Data Store, let's run. Okay. So you can see that the connection was successful. I have a DS object, which is a proxy object. It takes care of all the internal REST calls and passing the data and return from the server and everything. So, basically, it allows you to access a remote data store as if it were your local data store. So that's the beauty of Order. You can have pretty much identical code for accessing a remote data store as you would to your local data store. So we've got all the data classes as well as remember, the internal table that was created automatically when I activated DCT. So the connection is successful. Interesting. So I didn't pass any username or a password, and yet I was able to connect to the remote data store. When you're using force login mode, because you don't care for on REST authentication, you can basically connect without a username or a password. Now I'm going to attempt to fetch some records. So here, after I've already connected to my other data store, and I know there is a clients table there, so I'm going to try to do an all. I get an error. You need to be logged in to perform this request. So just because I was able to connect to my remote data store doesn't mean I've automatically gained access to all the records in all the tables. Now you have to log in. And that's why, well, hence the name forced login mode. So forced login mode basically means it's forcing the client, that's me, to log in. And in order to log in, you will have to call this API. It's a reserved function name, ds.authentify. Now, it doesn't exist by default. You have to create your own authentify method in your remote data store. So that I'm going to do that. Now, you see, I don't have any classes, even though I have 5 tables in my database. So I'm going to select show all data classes. And now you see I have the data store class, which is otherwise known as the data store implementation class. I'm going to copy and paste the example code. So what I've done here is added a function to the DS object and also exposed that function through REST. If I don't add the exposed function, I can only call this function locally. But thanks to the exposed keyword, this function is published as a REST API. And the purpose of you can do implement whatever authentication method that makes sense to you here. I just check for the secret token, and then if it matches, I'm going to assign the privilege DCT. Now, I'll talk about privileges later, but basically this is the minimum example code for Authentify. Yeah, so remember to add the exposed keyword, or else you won't be able to call it from the other application. Now I want to extend the roles JSON file, so it's over here. So right now I only have a privilege called none, and what I want to do is I want to add a second privilege called DCT. Now, what are privileges? I talk about privileges later in the GitHub page. Basically, there you are. So there are three keywords, concepts, you might say: permissions, privileges, and roles. Permission is the ability to perform specific actions on specific resources. So you see here permission. The permission to read DES is given to none, and the permission to create a table, for example, is also given to none, and so on. So that's permission. That's the ability or the right to do something. A privilege is basically it means you have a permission or multiple permissions. So none has certain permissions. DCT are going to give that privilege certain permissions as well. Role is it's basically the same as a privilege, except it's kind of a more human readable or more user-friendly representation of a privilege. You don't have to use roles. You can just design all your role settings using permissions only, permissions and privileges, sorry. But you can add a role. You can basically as an abstraction of a set of privileges, if that makes sense. So that's privileges. So going back to the scenario. Yep, so I've added Authentify. I've added a privilege. Now I'm going to save this and then call the des.authentify method from my other application, because I was told that I can't get my records unless I authentify. Now, because I have edited the roles.json file, it is necessary to restart the REST server. I can do that. Okay, so I restarted the REST server. So now Authentify is exposed. If I go back to the other application, the standalone application, and try to call DS-Authentify, I get an error. Unknown member method. You see, when I call Open Data Store for the first time a few minutes ago, 4D has created a proxy object that handles the connection to the other database, and that proxy object is cached in memory. So thereafter, every time I call Open Data Store, it's actually not connecting to the remote data store at all. It's simply returning the pre-existing cached object, which was created based on an earlier version of the REST server, which didn't include the Authentify method. So hence the error. Basically, I need to restart my client application as well. So now I've opened a connection to the data store, and Authentify didn't return an error. So it's in the new catalog, and then I am authentified. I have basically been given the DCT privilege. So I go on to now, when I call ds.clients, or this time I get a different error, no permission to read the client's data class. So this is where the roles JSON is really way much granular compared to the old user and group setting. It's a resource by resource privilege assignment. And remember, if you remember, nobody has the permission to read a table, the client's table, so I get an error. So I want to edit the roles JSON furthermore and add these permissions. Okay, the permission to read each of the 5 tables. So I'm going to add that. So now DCT has the permission to read or create or update or drop, basically CRUD, on the client's table. So I've edited the roles JSON file, which means I have to restart my REST server again. So I do that. Now this time, I don't have to restart the client application because nothing has changed at the structure level. I've only changed the permissions in the roles file. So I attempt to read records from the client's table. Now I get 200 entities from the client's table, from the products table, and so on. I have permission to access all 5 tables on my other database. So that's how you basically configure your 4D application as a REST server with appropriate permissions. Now we actually go to the DCT, the fun part. So that part I have put into a component. So you can download the component from here. It's a separate repository. Yeah, DCT. If you're using 4D20R6, you can install this component using the dependencies feature, which automatically downloads the latest version of the component from GitHub. Now, today I'm just going to use the old way, which is to manually create a components folder, and then that's the source code over here. So I'm going to copy this inside the components folder and then restart to load the component. So if I go to the Explorer and methods page, I don't have the components. Probably should have added 4D base extension because this is a project. So as you know, even if the host database is in binary mode, you can have a component which is in project mode. So now I have the DCT component, which exposes the DCT class. Cool. Okay, so I've installed. I have installed the component. So I'm here. Where am I? There. And I want to use the DCT class. Okay, so this is a test. That's weird. DCT. There you go. And just copy and paste the example. And I want to show you what happens inside the component because I'm using the interpreted version of this component. I can actually go through the source code in interpreted mode. Right. So first of all, I instantiate the DCT class there, which has a few properties. Okay. And basically, all I need is the well, two functions actually. You can see it in Explorer. One is called connect, and the other is called sync. So it can't be more simpler. Everything else is just it's a getter. So it's basically a property. So don't care about that. Connect and sync. So first, I use the connect method. I pass what I would have passed to the Open Data Store command as host name. Normally, that's the domain name or IP address followed by the port number if it's non-default, and anything else that is supported by Open Data Store I can pass to the connect method. Okay, so I'm going to connect. Maybe I should go inside the component. So you can see that I'm basically passing whatever was passed as a parameter to the Open Data Store command, and then return true or false. True. Successful. Next, I call authentify. Okay, as explained earlier. Again, authentify is ooh, there you go. Collapse that. Successful. I know that already from the test. And here's the fun part, the sync. So that's all. So it's written as a generic component, so it should work in any database. You can install it in your binary application as I did here, or your project database if you want to do a bidirectional synchronization. Okay. The first, I'm doing update stamps. What's that? It's basically fetching from a file the local stamp. So that's the stamp for the local database, and the remote stamp, which is the remote database, self-explanatory. And those values are actually stored as files because you want them to persist over calls. So, this dot get, okay, so actually this is, I can actually show you what happens inside. Get local data stamp. So what's done here is calling the native function, which was added in 20R3, get global stamp. So the global stamp, because I haven't performed any synchronization yet, is 0, which is the starting point. Now get remote global stamp, this is interesting, is a function that attempts to call the same function, the get global stamp, except using REST. You see, the get remote, no, get, so get global stamp function is only available as a local function. It is not exposed. So in order to expose that to your local database, you need to basically create a wrapper function. So I'm going to do that. Did I mention that in here? Maybe I didn't. Yeah. Anyway, I'll do that. So go to data store, and I'm going to create an expose function called, what's the name? Get remote global stamp. There, which returns a number. It's internally it's an integer 64-bit, but I'm going to substitute that with real, which should return ds dot get global stamp. Okay. Now I should have, because I changed the catalog once again, restart interpreted. I can do that. And I will probably have to restart my client as well. Okay, there you go. Let's start. So I instantiate the component class, I connect and authentify. So far, so good. Go into sync. No permission to execute the get remote. So this is where the roles thing is really strict. I have to add another permission. There you go. Which allows me to call this function remotely. So we're mainly interested in the execute permission. And this is going to be, I wonder what this is going to be. Probably developer.roles JSON. There you go. Privileges and roles. Huh. I should search resources.
Is it execute?
Yeah, execute is the name of the action. The is it can be a function. Is that the right? I think it is. It should be function. Just go with function. There you go. ds.getRemote global stamp is a function, and I want to give the execute permission to DCT. Okay. Yet again, I have to restart. No, restart interpreted. If there's something wrong in the roles JSON file, then I should get an assert. There is an error. So I've got the phrasing wrong. So it's not a function. I wonder what it is. It's, could it be a method? Is that even possible? Okay, let's try again. Well, it's not even a method. So what could it possibly be? So this part is correct, apply to type. Now that's the part that I should probably look for type. It can be, oh, method is the right word. Fair enough. Okay, so method is okay. Apply to method, execute, describe. I wonder what the error file says. Huh. You know what? Actually, I think this is working because there's a slight time difference between the server restarting and the error file being deleted. The immediately after the restart, even if the roles file is correct, the method is correct, I could get an error. See, I didn't get an assert the second time, even though I really didn't change anything from the initial the error. So maybe checking for the existence of the file is not a foolproof way of knowing whether your roles file has an error. It could be misleading. It could be a false flag. Anyways, I got that out of the way. And did I restart my client? I probably should. Now, let's go. Connect, authentify. Now I'm in sync. See, I didn't get an error in update stamp, so that's fine. And now I see my local stamp, so that I'm starting from 0. And also the remote database is at the stamp 0. Now that information is actually not here. Oh, it is here, stored in the log file. So inside the logs file, you see there's a folder named DCT created, and the information here is actually 0 bytes. So that's the log. So I haven't even recorded the stamp anyway. I'm into the middle of synchronization. So basically, I do two things. In step 1, I send all the changes since the last synchronization. I determine that based on the stamp from local to remote. And when I do that, I do the opposite. I get all the difference between all the new changes since the last synchronization from the remote back to local. So to do that, I go through every data class that has DCT enabled. How do you know if DCT is enabled? You basically check for the existence of the global stamp field. If that field exists, it means you support DCT. So first, I get the client data class and do some basic checking. Now, then I do a query on the table. So this is hard-coded global stamp. Everything since the last synchronization. So because this is the first time, I start from 0 minus 1, which is minus 1, to get all the modified or created entities in an entity selection. That will be none because I didn't change anything since enabling DCT. So this loop basically does nothing. And same thing for the remote to local. So I'm just going to run here. And then again, I check for any changes since the last synchronization. Nothing. So nothing. Not interesting at all. Now I'm going to change some records. So clients, let's say I change this, the name of this client to something else. If I run synchronization again, so connect, authentify, sync. So you got the starting point, which is that, and there you go. You see in my query, I get an entity selection of length 1 because I changed one entity in the clients table. So that's that qualifies for synchronization. So I'm going to loop over the entity selection and then basically push that modification to the other application. So if I see the change has been pushed to the remote database. From here to here. Yeah. Okay, I could do something the reverse. So here now I'm going to change a record on the remote database and then perform synchronization again. So connect, authentify, sync. So this time I can probably put a breakpoint around here, there. Ooh. can't do that because it's inside a component, maybe. Okay, so I'm going to just jump right up to the point. And nothing changed locally, so I get 0. And then if I go over to the second phase here, I see that one entity has been modified on the other end. So I synchronize that. And as a result, you see that I've got the record being pushed from the remote database to the local database. So that's basically how synchronization works. I could go on to some design details, but I think I've been talking for pretty long. So maybe if there are any questions or some observations, I'll be happy to take some any comments.
That was there's a lot of great details in there to unpack. Like all of Keisuke's demos. It's gonna probably require a couple of views to see everything that he actually just demonstrated. We have a comment in the chat from Michael, fantastic presentation, always so clear and understandable. Thank you so much. Let's see, that one is not in regards to the
I've got a question about this. I've done 4 or 5 syncing systems using all kinds of different methods, dumping the files, all these things. Okay, 4D open, long time ago. Remember that? Okay, so if you're sending a record from one database to another, fantastic. Get the record here, put it in a new database, you're done. Okay. Is there a way when you are you're running a sync and you've grabbed some data from the remote data store, before you save each one of those, because I assume you're going through entity by entity and saving them. I didn't see that in your code, but I assume that you could add your own code in there. As an example, say I have a table where I want to update data, but I don't want to update data in 2 or 3 fields in that entity. Okay. And so I need a special case to say, okay, if I'm doing this particular data class, then extra code. Can you show in your code? I guess it's in the component, so that's why you couldn't see it because you had to trace through it. But can you show in your code when you've got the remote thing to sync, how it actually saves it into the local database?
Sure. So I'm going to start my screen sharing again, and you're absolutely right. That part is in the component. So I'm going to show you the source code of the component. So it's all done in this class called DCT, and the part you are interested in would be in the sync method. So here you see that first I identify a table by its name, the data class name, and I have just one special case, which is in case the name of the table is _ deleted records. That's the table. Well, this is not in the component, but in the
that's the one that records every time.
That's the one that records all the deletions, because deleted records no longer exist on the other table, so you need a separate table for that. You can see that I'm going through each entity in the entity selection, and then well, because it's a delete case, I'm just dropping it. But you can decide to log or do something else if you so wish. The records are always identified by the primary key, so I do that to locate the entity that needs to be deleted according to the sync information. Now that's the deletion case. As for every other table, I use the global stamp to filter all the records that need to be updated, and then I use the key, the primary key, to get that record from the remote data store, and I get a copy as an entity. Now here I'm doing a for each on the entity, which will give me on each iteration the name of the field. That'll be the attribute name. And I'm doing a little query here because an attribute name, technically, it could be a calculated attribute, it could be a relation attribute, it could even be the global stamp attribute, which you shouldn't be synchronizing. This is an internal field, so I take that out of the way. And then here I'm just assigning from the local entity to the remote entity, or the reverse on the other face. But yeah, you could further filter specific fields or do something else with it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I see now. So you have to go, you get the local entity, then you go get the remote entity, which is in your remote data store, and then you got to go through attribute by attribute and assign the values to each field in each of these entities. So
exactly.
I'd have to take your component and make a custom one that would let me add more logic to that little section right there to say, oh,
yeah,
for instance,
this about making a like a callback, like an overload, right? But the source code is
there's several
open.
ways to do it. Make a custom component or add the ability to pass in or call back or something. Okay, great. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. Makes me want to upgrade and throw away all my old sync code and use this.
It's funny you mentioned the 4D open. Yeah, we've I think you've been around in the game long enough. Yeah, you've done that, and
that's a project right now. It's moving from V14 to V20. Okay, which is perfect and it's got a syncing system, not like using an old 4D open kind of implementation. Come to 4D Happy Hour if you want to know about it, and I'll tell you about it. But the point is that I'd like to get rid of all this code and use something that's much more streamlined. And this is much more streamlined, and it's using I guess it's using the REST interface to communicate between the two systems, right? It's using the 4D REST interface.
That is correct. I did use the Open Data Store command, but that internally uses the REST interface. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's great.
And as we mentioned, so much was packed into this demo. Just the converting a binary application to a project-based application. We saw that. We saw setting up the roles and the privileges and all of that, which is again almost its own whole demonstration of that feature, and then in combination with the opening a remote data store, and how that can be used in combination with the data change features, being the global stamp and the deleted records table. It's just a real tour de force of of great features reviewed here. Does anybody else have any other questions? I see Eric asked, are there time considerations for large tables, or does this only see modified data? It seems that it's querying on the global stamp, so it's only and not to answer Eric's question for you, but it would appear that it's only applying to modified data, right?
I need to check back on that, but because I'm using order, perhaps there's an advanced feature called context, where you can specify which attributes you want to basically lazy load, well, not lazy load, but fetch when necessary. Otherwise, because I'm basically fetching entity by entity, it is possible, especially for now. There are several features for optimizing REST access or remote data store access in general. One has to do with how much blob you want to cache. There's another one with the number of entities you fetch when you loop over an entity selection. If you want to fetch 80 or 100 or something like that. So you can basically, there's some room for optimization, but in this demo, I do none of that. I just use the top line API as is with no tweaks.
Yeah,
Now,
we've seen this data. We've done this. I worked with a developer on implementing a really similar system. So this is actually a really interesting thing that's actually just been exposed in 20R3. Take two steps back. This technology was actually the baseline of the data sync. So it's an underpinning, is the underpinnings of the data sync between 40 for mobile. And so this was actually something that happened under the hood. And the feature in 20R3 just allowed for us to expose that in an easy manner for developers to be able to use this global stamp. So it's a tried and true method. And the way in which it's been done that I've seen, it was for syncing medical data through 3 different servers all around the world on a given basis. It was done through the timestamp, and then there's an incrementer, and then you pretty much just query anything more recent, and and your application knows what the last sync was done, and then you pretty much sync anything new around and you push it all around.
no, it's
That's the way
nice
that
that
we
it's
did it there. So we did it step by step, not sharing
Mm.
everything all around at any given
Now that
time.
makes sense. Also, not to, yeah, there's also the ability to hide specific fields from the REST API in the structured data. You can select which fields you want. If a field is not exposed via REST, then when you iterate over the attributes, as I did in the for loop, those fields would just simply not be there.
There was a comment from Aaron. I take it since you demoed in port 80 that the secret plus the data would go over in the clear. Well, that would be correct. But that's only for the purposes of the demo, right?
That's right.
Yeah. It's obviously if you're doing this certainly for medical data, you would not be using port 80.
Absolutely.
Yeah, another great question from R Vogt. So using integrate log file integration doesn't fire triggers, but this approach with DCT probably would fire triggers, or
Yeah,
is
we're,
that
we're calling the standard
yeah,
save function
yeah.
on each entity.
Right. So you would have to, if you're concerned about deactivating the triggers, you'd either have to do that by code or by,
That's right.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and by the same token, any constraints like such as primary keys or unique values could prevent the save from succeeding.
Hmm.
So that's also possible.
Right. Exception handling is always the
Yeah.
the trickiest part of any of this kind of thing.
And I guess syncing both sides of the data, our current implementation didn't matter because it was for medical data at a medical office. So one person can't be in France and the United States at the same time getting the data. So that is always an issue of syncing data multi. So that's what we saw for the current implementation. Maybe Keisuke has more on that.
No, that's absolutely right, because in order you use a single field primary key to identify a record. And in this example, the primary key was a numeric, a sequential number. Now that might not work if if records are created in two instances that are not connected to, it's not a client server, so you can technically issue the same primary key to two different records. So if that is a possibility, then it would be better to use something with no collision like an UUID for the primary key. Or the primary key could incorporate something that's unique to the device or the client. application.
James Scott was asking, I'm correct that no data moves unless you issue a query and or code it. So it's all custom coded with the query and the checking for the changed records, right?
That's right, yes.
Right. Right. So I guess this question is in regards to collisions from Peter. What happens when a record is changed on both sides of the sync? It seems, but I am probably wrong, that the sync code exchanges the records between the two sites question.
Yes, so in my example, I did um, local to remote first and then remote to local second, which means changes on, well, if the same record is, and I increment the stamp after each synchronization because you don't want to push changes to the other database and that being sent back to you because then they'll be bouncing forever. So I just skip whatever changes I've made as a result of the synchronization process. So yes, because just by the logic of doing local to remote first, then it automatically makes one side win.
Okay. Yep. Let's see if there's anything else. If anyone else has a particular question or comment, now's it.
Hey,
So-
Brent. So
Yep.
we saw the message from Michael LaRue about the acquisition.
Uh-huh.
So I think we'd like to tackle that if we could.
Sure.
Okay. Ricardo, you want to start on that?
Sure. I saw the question. It's a very interesting question from Michael. Let's talk about Volaris in a different way. So this is a company that has more than 300 software companies under their umbrella, right? Also, they have been growing in a rate that is pretty impressive. So 24% compound growth rate for the last 20 years. So when they buy 4D, they bought us because of our technology and the network of clients that we have. Now, what is the future of 4D under Volaris? Is imagine if you see the article that I just posted there, you will see that Volaris is just a shell. They don't interfere in the company. They are acquiring businesses that are profitable, that are solid, that have a great history, and they come to just improve their business. And they do that by synergy. You have now 300 companies that 4D can count on it. Sorry, guys, I have a little interview. So I was saying that we have 300 companies that I can count. Volaris can count now, and 4D can count on it to grow. Also, you can't be growing at that rate with all those companies under their umbrella if you are not bringing more technology and evolution to those companies, right? So the goal for Volaris is acquire 4D, solid company, incredible technology that will grow exponentially from now on. That's the perspective. I hope that helps understand a little bit the context. And maybe, Jim, you can add something on top of that as well.
Yeah. So the part of Michael's question that intrigued me was why 4D? Why did they acquire 4D? Well, in addition to what Ricardo just said, so they acquire vertical market companies, right? basically companies that sell into a specific market. We're kind of not that. 4D is more of a horizontal company. So people use 4D to build applications, and then they sell them into a vertical market, like our OEMs do, selling into healthcare or whatever. Volaris really likes that approach to software development and sales. And so they started a new group that really isn't a vertical market company. It's just called software development. So we're in the vanguard of that group. We're one of only three, I think, maybe two or three. That is a company that builds software that their developers use to sell into vertical markets. So they really like that business model. They like the technology, and in fact, yeah. So there's that. But in addition to that, there are other 4D companies under the Volaris umbrella. We're not the only one. In fact, there's one right here in Berkeley that is part of the Volaris group, and they were acquired about 4 years ago. I'm in contact with them a lot, and they totally love working for Volaris. They've been able to grow their company in the last 4 years. So we have a lot of resources now at our disposal. And in addition, I think it will be good for our customers in the sense that a lot of times I'm asked by developers or customers, can you come to this meeting because my prospect has never heard of 4D? They're worried they're going to go away in 5 years. They're worried that they don't have financial resources. But you guys know that we've always been a sound financial company, right? Very conservative fiscally. But now we can tell IT departments who want to use 4D to grow their company that we have this huge company behind us, right? So we're not going anywhere. And now our future is really secure for decades. And like I told you earlier, they haven't turned over any of the companies they've acquired. So not that we were going anywhere anyway, but for sure we're not now. So I think it's great in that regard. It's just getting, like I said earlier, getting accustomed to working for a larger company. And
Jim, can I add something? Let me add something here as well, which is this. Imagine this group that acquired more than 300 companies. Now we have 350 companies under the Volaris umbrella. Constellation Software has more than 1,000 companies under the umbrella. But Volaris, the group that we are part of it, one of the groups from Volaris, more than 340 companies on, right? It is impossible for Volaris to be putting their finger on the companies. They will go crazy. So imagine this. They have a framework of way of buying companies and make them work together. That's why we are kind of proud with the decision that Laurent did, because Volaris does not understand the business. They want us to run the business. They didn't come to us and say, run the business this way or change the product in this way. And they don't know. And that's the beauty of it, this whole deal for the community, right? That's why we're so confident. I know there's some things going on right now that sounds that not very clear, but just picture a company that is very professional on acquiring companies, and they don't acquire companies to sell it after, right? This is not a private equity that comes to a company that's in trouble, buys, changes everything, and then sells after. This is not their case. Their case is we buy, we put to work together with all the companies that we have, we improve their processes, we get some benefits from like the having a back in our back, a large corporation, but they let us work in the way that we always work because they don't understand our business. They actually they want to incentivize us to even go further, you know. And another point is, imagine this compound growth rate that I just mentioned to you folks. It's a company that is leaping, is growing a lot, is acquiring other companies, but the whole group needs to grow. And the way that the group grows, there's something called initiatives, which is new features, new things for the products, work very close to your client. They're just going to put even a bigger lens on what we are doing. And they're going to come with the money if we inspire them to go through it, right? So I think it's very important. It's not a company that comes to affect and change us, but to really push us to a different level, keeping everybody that's working with you guys for the whole team, the technical team, sales team, support team, and etc. We hope that helps for you guys.
Any talk about growing the 4D market?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Tell us what they're going to do to help 4D grow its market. Tell us.
Well, we don't know that yet, Tim, because we just got acquired. So don't have many answers for that yet.
In other words, marketing, infusing money, making the 4D name bigger, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are plans for that. But like I said, we're just getting accustomed to that, to
maybe
being part of the group.
Maybe at the summit, we might hear something.
Oh, I think for sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's October.
Yeah. So I would like to, Will Taylor is here, and Will and Ricardo both attended the Volaris conference that was in Cancun. And there were things like 1,400 people there or something like that. And Will represented 4D, as did Ricardo. And I think Will had some really good takebacks from that meeting. So I don't know, Will, if you.
Yeah, it was a great meeting. So they brought everybody, all the heads of professional services, sales, R&D, all together to meet, and then just to really work, and then to kind of explain the way in which Volaris works, and to kind of push us to as Ricardo said, how to get to the next level, how to become a more efficient company, a better company, in order to be able to then invest back in the product. They still believe in. They acquire technology companies, and then they like them to then really invest in the product wisely, how to manage that, how to track that, and all sorts of different things. So it was a great opportunity. We met people from all different vertical markets, people that sell signposts, people that in Brazil, to people that, so pretty much all sorts of different companies. And yeah, it's a really cool place to be, and they were really interested in 4D, and that's already a place where we are going to be working. And if anybody does already for professional services, it was a really good place to be, because people are always keen on professional services, using our teams and seeing how they could leverage kind of an internal team to Volaris for their projects. So professional services, moving into doing proof of concepts with 4D, etc. So all really interesting. So yeah, it was just a fun, really collaborative way. And then it just shows how collaborative and innovative. I've been working with other people. We all get to share information. I've been working with other teams in other companies now to share kind of best practices that we've been doing, or sharing, or doing well or not doing well, right? So it's kind of the environment that we're joining, and we're really excited to be there. And it's helping us grow, and then that will then trickle down, and then it'll have incredible effects elsewhere in downstream to the developers, we feel.
Yeah. And Tim, from about your question is so important, but I think what you will feel and you will see, and maybe moving forward, is that Volaris thought that we have more value than what we thought we have. They really look for as a technology that it can go way further, and they only invest in companies that they really believe on it. They don't sell it, as we mentioned. They make them grow, because otherwise you cannot keep this compound growth if you're not having the whole group growing with you, right? So I think that's the core. They really like the technology, and they like the way that we built that. In fact, you folks build the business, right? They like the fact that our systems are everywhere, and many of the vertical markets that they work as well, right? So it's going to maybe open possibilities for us in some of those markets as well. So we're still through the process. As Jim mentioned, it's just like 2-3 months that we have been acquired, right? And this first process is quite putting all the compliance and everything that we need to do now for them to understand even better. And I think you will see some of the starting to some of the change in the event at the end of the year.
That's great. I got one more thing to ask about. There've been a lot of discussions over the last few weeks about where's 4D going and how is the actually changing this direction. And it keeps coming back up. It seems like 4D wants everybody to be on a reoccurring subscription system. In other words, don't buy 4D server and a web server and a bunch of clients. Don't buy that license and use it for 4 or 5 years. No, don't do that. Get into a subscription system, which is much cheaper than that, and pay it every year, especially the developer package. You'll no longer be able to buy 4D. Just buy the package and use it for 3 or 4 years. You got to subscribe to it. You got to have the subscription, the developer thing. Do you feel that? Is that the direction 4D is going? We want to get away from selling you products, and we want to get into this subscription monthly reoccurring. Have you had that feeling, any of you guys, talking with Valeris? Or is that a secret that you don't really want to publicize yet? That's the direction we're heading to.
Well, I'll give you my personal view of it, which is we have been having subscriptions for a long time, right? Some subsidiaries, they are based on subscriptions now. Germany has a very high level of subscriptions, right? So it's just that it was something that has been always in 4D, right? And they may push it forward more or something, but it's ultimately the decision of the developer, right, to stay on one or the other. I don't know how maybe Jim and Will can jump in, but it's not something new in that is they're just bringing.
It's new in that we had a 50% price increase over last year. Okay, and when you say if someone comes and says I need a new system, and you're going to build that 4D server and this many users and a web server or whatever the thing, you add all that up, okay? That's a big number. Then you go, well, what if we do subscription? Wow, it's a heck of a lot cheaper.
Something to think about. I know you've done that yourself, Tim. So
I know.
I think
I'm
that's
just wondering, because the developer package is no longer, you can't buy the developer, you've got to subscribe to it.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
that's
wondering if all the products are going to go that way at some point.
I think what you're seeing now is more of a market trend, Tim.
I know it's a market
what's
trend. That's why I'm
happening in a
wondering
lot
if
of
4D is going to
places
get on that trend.
where people before used to buy a software, right? 4D, when I first bought 4D, it was probably came in floppy disks. You bought it, you installed it, you paid a lot of money for it, and you kept on, and every so often you'd buy a new version. Now, it required a major, similar to buying a server, right? Buying a server costs a lot of money, or you can rent on Amazon. So what do? Depending on your business and depending on what you need locally and what your customer needs and their ability to spend at any given time, you have the option to have a lower barrier to entry, which is a subscription model, or a higher one that you then amortize over time. So it all depends on where you are and where your customer is. And depending on if you want to build a new system, if the customer has the cash up front, okay, buy it. If not, then you can always subscribe. So I think that's where it's kind of been, and that's what we've been seeing in the market. And this is just general trends. We just did that with a professional services customer. They didn't want to buy a server. Great. We'll put it on Amazon. They'll pay a little bit every month or X amount every month. So
did they buy 4D server license or are they subscribing to it?
They are buying the license.
Okay.
So
yeah, some people have to own it. Some people need perpetual licenses. There are many companies like that, government agencies that need to take receipt of a license and not rent it.
Okay.
So I think we can have both models, really.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So
Brent, I know we're going long here. Is it okay?
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to you, Jim and Will and Ricardo for answering. And I would love to extend, and not my position, of course, that should come from Kirk, but to show up, one of you guys or all three of you, whatever, to the 4D happy hour where it's really laid back and we can just chat about this stuff, because we've sort of taken over this last part of this wonderful presentation from Miyako, which was really, really good. And I didn't want to shift over to this discussion, but if you could pop over into somebody pop into the 4D happy hour, then we could just sort of kick back, and you can, all the stuff that you're telling us is fantastic. It's the first time a lot of it, we've been guessing about it, but nobody really know. And to hear it from you is really, really worthwhile and really wonderful. So, like I say, it would be really, really wonderful if if somebody there could just drop in. Nobody's going to bite you. We're all happy.
If I can jump in on that, both as happy hour. I mean, I've extended that invitation to, I think, all you guys personally and on Wyatt, but let me just openly reiterate that you are very welcome anytime. As I mentioned earlier, I'm starting to introduce a little more structure. So if you would like to be there, and we can, put a time block on it so that you don't get, spend your entire afternoon there, which could happen. There's that. And also, I want to express my thanks. I mean, as somebody who, frequently is kind of creating some posts undiscussed that attract a lot of attention about the whole business side of things, I tremendously appreciate you making this outreach. And I think you have done a tremendous service to the community here in this last 25 minutes by just, having this discussion. I know I appreciate it, just personally, I appreciate it. And so, yes, I appreciate Michael, kind of hijacking it. Brent, sorry for that. Miyako, I want to say this is a fabulous presentation, and let us not lose sight of that. But this is time for a lot of things. There's a lot of important things going on in the community. And so, yeah, you have my personal invitation to come participate anytime. And my appreciation for the conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about it internally and get somebody over there, Kirk. Thank you for the invitation. Michael, thank you for bringing the question up. And Keisuke, we didn't want to detract from your presentation, which was off the charts amazing. Like Will said, we have a huge customer who's using something just like that. So it was really interesting to see. Thank you so much. And I know it's like 5 o'clock in the morning there, or something crazy. I don't know if you stay up now and keep working or go to bed, whatever. Thank you for the presentation. It was amazing.
It was. Yeah. Thank you so much. And you've always got a spot, and you just pick a date. We'll bump whoever's on the schedule.
Except Ricardo.
That's right. That's right.
And everything you 4D guys said, Jim and Ricardo and Will, makes me feel better about the 4D going forward. We just need a little bit more, and then we'll all be back to normal again and be out there selling 4D products for you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Obviously, there's a lot more to discuss, but yeah, such a great presentation. Thank you so much, especially doing it in the middle of the night. I mean, I can't imagine how much better it would be if it was at 10 a.m. So, but yeah, and thanks everyone at 4D for as always supporting the community and making yourselves available for the frank discussion. We're all big 4D proponents, and I'm sure that will continue as we move into the land of Valeris. But yeah, and so until next time, I'm gonna just say feedback is always appreciated, and as well as support via Patreon or otherwise. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Brent.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.